The Spurs finally get back on the court today versus the Rockets, but will they win?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey guys, this is Jason David Frank, the Green Ranger, and you are listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia. It's morphin' time.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs, the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Kids Fight San Antonio. Glad to have you back. Yes, silver and black basketball is back. I don't know, maybe some of y'all just not even worried about that anymore, considering the Spurs have lost 11 in a row. Oh, yeah, some of y'all already checked out of the season. That's crazy. But yeah, Rockets, Spurs tonight. What are some keys to for the Spurs to get the W? Can they get the W? What should fans watch out for? Much, much more. Then we're going to have our game. We're going to continue it. Win or loss. When will the Spurs losing streak end? We'll look at the next game, tonight's game, and then additional more games. And put the guest on the hot seat. And then I'll have a bone to pick with my guest today. A very big bone to pick with him. Let's go to welcome in. He is Joe Garcia with Two Shots Podcast. Joe, we're going to save this for the second, or not for the last segment, but I got a very big bone to pick with you.
Oh, not as big as a bone that everybody has with Jimenez. Everybody's been dragging him, so that's been fun to watch the implosion that is Michael Jimenez. So good on you, Jimenez.
if you didn't catch the last or a couple episodes ago, I mean, I get it. It's been a while, but basically Jimenez came on Locked On Spurs and he dragged Trey Jones. He called him mid. He said Keldon Johnson should get traded immediately. The list goes on, and he got dragged. He got dragged.
Jimenez knows what he's doing, and his takes are pretty mid right now. He needs to do a little better. Do better, Jimenez. I'm going to have him on my show pretty soon here. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Are you going to drag him?
No. We're just going to have fun with it. I see what he's doing. He's just stirring the pot. You got to stir the pot to keep everything moving forward. No, not him. Not him.
But anyway, we're going to have some fun today here on Locked On Spurs. Hopefully, like I said, the Spurs get a W tonight versus the Rockets. And stay tuned because I got a bone to pick with Joe here. He's been dreading the invite, and he's here. So we'll discuss that.
Nothing. I've been running from nothing. I think you're. I'll be honest. I think Jeff's scared.
I am not scared. I put it out there. Well, we'll get to that later on.
We'll
definitely get to that later on. But hey,
the consequences of the bet are something that he's very fearful of. Let's put it like that.
Thanks for everybody for tuning into this episode of Locked On Spurs. We think that you make this your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. So let's go and dive into it. Joe, Spurs or Rockets tonight. Before we get into predictions, look, the team's on an 11-game losing streak. Last place in the conference, second worst record in the NBA. Again, we don't have the injury report with us right now ahead of the game. Again, this is recorded before the Rockets.
Do we really need
games. That is true. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, maybe so, because if Pirtle's back, then that definitely skyrockets their chances. But nevertheless, what do you just want to see out of this team tonight? What does Joe Garcia want this Spurs team to do to at least have a shot to get a W?
Look, the only thing that I want to see, and I think, pretty much all Spurs fans want to see, is just a complete effort. Over the course of the last 11 games that the Spurs have lost, it's just been a lack of effort. You're going to have mental lapses. You're going to have poor decisions, that the players are going to make with the ball. All that's indicative of a young team just trying to find their way. But the one thing that you want to see, regardless if the team wins or loses, is just the effort. And right now, the body language and, just what I'm seeing out on court, it's just not there. It's a lot of frustration going around. So we just need to see an effort. Just put in the effort, guys, and good things will happen. If you just sulk and put your head down, you could be looking at another couple games of, to continue the losing streak. And we might be looking at 13 losses in a row. I mean, just put in the effort.
Number 12 could be tonight versus Houston.
Right.
But Rockets come in at 7-17. And despite that record, they have been playing better ball of late. a lot better than the Spurs. This is to say the Rockets are not on an 11-game losing streak. They took Philadelphia to overtime, beat them 132 to 123. Now, in their last several games, they've won 4 and they lost 3. So they're about 4-7 heading into tonight's contest. So they're getting things together. They're definitely putting up points. They've scored over 100 points in their last 7 games. This is a very talented team despite their 7-17 record, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, the Rockets have a lot of talent on their team, young talent. And
No, they got Sengun. Sengun is a big one. That's a lot of. That's a player that I hope the Spurs got in the draft.
He was there, Jeff,
draft, but hey, so far so good.
Well, the Spurs just went ahead and passed on a lot of opportunities for Primo. So that didn't work out too well for the team.
Primo, sorry,
yeah.
But it's still a talented team. Tari Eason, a player that I had on my radar in the draft, he's averaging about 8.8 points per game and about 18 minutes per game. There's Green, and he leads the Rockets in scoring 21.6 points per game. Porter Jr., 19 per game. Sengun, the guy we mentioned, 15 points per game and about 9 rebounds. So again, I don't think this record reflects what the Rockets team could do to San Antonio. They got young, talented backcourt, Green and Porter Jr. They got a big front court with Sengun and Eason and Smith Jr. It could be in for a long night for the Spurs. I just want to see this team be competitive. That's it. Just go back to that competitive effort we saw earlier in this season. Remember, Joe, when we would ever be cheering for moral victories? The Spurs, they only lost by 2. They only lost by 3. Now they're losing by what, 18, 16, 20 points, Joe?
Or they find themselves down by 42 plus points with the Phoenix Suns, so.
Yeah.
It's getting ugly, man.
Yeah. Hopefully the bleeding stops tonight, but there's some things you're going to keep out for. So now, there are certain things that the Rockets are doing that could be in the Spurs' favor. For example, despite the Rockets playing a little bit better ball lately, they have 5 straight games with a lower 3-point percentage. Now, that's not much to say about San Antonio, who can find the bottom of the basket from the field, but hopefully the 3 ball won't be an issue for San Antonio and having to defend it. Now, 4 straight games with the Rockets, they made less 3-pointers than their opponent. Again, hopefully the Spurs don't have to worry about this Rockets team going on a 3-point barrage. But second chance opportunity, the Rockets are getting that. Last 4 games straight for the Rockets, they've had more offensive rebounds than their opponent. Second chance opportunities. And Joe, we've been seeing sometimes this Spurs team just not getting back on transition defense.
Well, I mean, you see that a lot, and unfortunately it's not the Spurs' strong suit. Right now, they're dead last, I believe, in the league as far as their defensive rating. They rank 30 out of 30 teams in the NBA, and the Rockets don't fare much better. They're 28 out of 30. Neither team is a very good defensive team, but the Spurs, they're just stinking it up on the defensive end. And you can go ahead and have an argument that, you have players out, a team dealing with injuries, but that's to be expected throughout this course of an NBA season. It's just, this team's just not very good defensively. I think we thought we saw a little bit of those shades of this team not being very good last season. And unfortunately, with some of the moves that the team made, their defensive rating has gotten much worse this season. So when teams are dropping over 110, 112, I mean, even 120, 130 points on you any given night, doesn't bode well for you, if you can't stop the other team from doing whatever they want to against you. So, and you compile that, Jeff, with the Spurs not being a very good offensive team too. I mean, they're 29th out of 30 teams in the NBA. So
their plus minus too, Joe, was just horrendous. They're not losing by a few in the last few games. They're losing by double figures. I mean, on average, about 18, 19 points is on the minus 18, 19 around there. But the Spurs come into this tonight's game 6-18, again, dead last in the Western Conference. So what's been going on with the Spurs in this losing streak? Well, in this losing streak, they have less field goals made than their opponent in 3 straight games. They've been out rebounded in 3 straight games. Uh, they're not getting to the free throw line. They're 2 straight games of less free throw attempts than their opponents. Overall, as mentioned, 11 consecutive losses. 5 straight home losses is just a bad mix right now. And we're talking about the 3-point shot. Again, the Spurs are not doing themselves any favors as well. 8 straight games of a lower 3-point percentage than their opponents, as well as in attempts with 2 straight games. So this game could be very ugly, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, it could be another ugly loss for the Spurs. But let's face it, when you're looking at both teams, the Rockets are just a hair better than the Spurs. If the Spurs really put forth the effort, and that means all hands on deck, doing the right things with the basketball and playing a little bit better defense throughout the entire course of the 48 minutes, I think the team can go ahead and maybe sneak in a win with the Rockets. But again, this is bearing that we don't know what's happening as far as the injury report, and as far as the Rockets too, we don't know if they're going to just go ahead and sit a player or two. We haven't seen their injury report as of yet. So anything can happen, but this is basically, for all intents and purposes, fighting for trying to fight for the worst record in the NBA.
Yeah. Exactly. When we get back, we're going to continue our chat about tonight's Spurs-Rockets game, give some predictions, get into a little bit more of the stats right here with Joe Garcia of Two Shots Podcast. Hey, I want to talk to you about LinkedIn Talent Solutions. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. That's why you got to check it out. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. They even have this option where you can add your job and include a purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile just to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions makes it all easy for you to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. Here's what you got to do. LinkedIn Jobs helps find you the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We're back with Joe Garcia. He is with Two Shots Podcast, and we're looking at tonight's game, Spurs-Rockets. Hopefully the losing streak will end. Just a couple more things about tonight's game. Joe, I look at this and I think the fan base collectively now, I don't think is as divided, but it's leaning towards where maybe the season is going to be more about just getting the draft odds as high as they can. And this is where the Rockets could do the Spurs a favor, by giving them an L. Yeah, I know it sucks, but I think, Joe, we're getting very close to the point of the season where collective as a fan base, many of them are going to have to be saying, you know what, the season's already a wash.
Well, I mean, if you're a true fan, you kind of knew that in the off season when the Spurs were making some moves and letting DeJounte Murray go, going ahead and trading him. That just signaled that the team was, going into full rebuild mode. And when things like that happen, these are the effects. So if you weren't prepared before the season started, I'm sure that Spurs fans are looking at themselves in the mirror right now and saying, you know what, this team's just not very good. And unfortunately, they're going to lose a lot. But the bright side of things is you do have the NBA draft to look forward to. And everybody knows the prize is going to be one Victor Wembanyama, but I wouldn't be mad if the Spurs dropped to 2 and they wind up getting Scoot Henderson, because let's face it, Jeff, they could use another guard on this team. And I hear that the Nets are disgruntled with one Patty Mills. You know what? At this point, Patty, come home. We need a backup point guard here.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Blake Wesley was showing something before he got hurt. Did the Spurs want to stunt his development by bringing in a veteran? I mean, I think they're probably going to try to get rid of their veterans, not in a bad way, but just to get trade bait, like Pirtles and McDermott and Richardson. But tonight's game could be an ugly one, but we got to put Joe on the line here. Does this losing streak end tonight versus the Rockets?
I'm always trying to be optimistic, man. I mean, 11 is just an odd number. You don't want to see the streak continue at 12, but
Yeah.
man, I got to say, man, the basketball gods got to do the Spurs a solid sooner rather than later. But unfortunately, I just don't think that the Spurs are going to win this game against the Rockets tonight. And I say that because when I say things like that, it always has the opposite effect. So I'm going to say that the Spurs are going to lose against the
Psychological
Rockets.
games.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm playing
All right.
chess while others are playing checkers, Jeff.
All right. Well, I'm going to disagree with you. I think the Spurs get the W tonight, barely. I don't think they get blown out as they have been, but I think it comes down to the wire. But let's just pretend, Joe. Well, no, we don't have to pretend because you're saying it right now that the Spurs are probably going to get the L tonight versus the Rockets. Let's look at the Rockets and include the next 3 games. So we're going to be playing a game here with the last few guests, win or loss. And your goal is to predict which game the Spurs will snap their losing streak or the games where the losing streak will continue. So in this case, you already said they're losing tonight. So the Spurs go on to loss number 12 in a row. All right, Joe, win or loss, does the win streak stop Spurs Heat in Mexico City? What do you got?
No, that one, the Heat are just a much better team than the San Antonio Spurs. If the Spurs lose against the Rockets, they're going to lose against the Heat. Unfortunately, the streak will continue. And
All right, so Joe, you have them up to 13 losses in a
13.
row. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So after the Heat, Spurs Cavaliers in San Antonio, win or loss?
I have to go with an L again.
Wow. Wow.
Cavaliers. And I got to tell
now
you, Cavaliers,
we're up to 14 games straight now, Joe.
Yeah, the Cavaliers are looking renewed, like a renewed team with Donovan Mitchell, and they're playing really good basketball. So it's not going to bode well for the Spurs, who aren't really strong at the point guard position,
All right. After that, it's Blazers Spurs in San Antonio, win or loss?
On that one, I got to say, I think that's when the streak will end. I think that the basketball gods will smile upon the San Antonio Spurs, and the Spurs in front of the home crowd will finally get a win. Just a couple days away from Christmas, so that's going to be them giving us a present as fans.
So Joe, you have the losing streak going 11, 12, 13, 14 games straight. Wow, that would be the longest in Spurs history, well, under Popovich. In his tenure. I'm going with the snap it tonight. I think they snap it tonight, barely. I think it comes down to kind of a final period kind of thing, fourth quarter. But yeah, these two teams are going to make it ugly tonight. But hopefully the Spurs will get that W. Wow, Joe, 14 games straight. Brutal.
Yep.
You're not the only one to say that Blazers game could be a game where the Spurs snap it. There's been others that agree with you there. Majority of those guests that have been on before you are picking tonight is calling this is the best shot the Spurs have at snapping it. But see, I think if they lose tonight, I don't see the streak ending until maybe when they go back to Houston on December 19th.
Wow.
I can't see them. I definitely can't see them being the Cavs. I think the Heat will be a slugfest. The Blazers, with Dame Lillard and Jeremy Grant, I think they'd be a problem. Then you play the Heat again, and then you got the Rockets in Houston. So, woo.
Well, the next best chance that they have to get a win would be when they're on the road playing the Magic, which are the Magic are the worst team in the NBA, with the Spurs just a hair above them. So, it might be their next best chance.
That'd be the tankathon right there.
Mm-hmm. It sure will be.
That's the tank game right there.
The victor, the loser, getting the right for one.
The loser is really the winner in that case for Scoot or Victor. Hey, we're not done talking. When we get back, we're gonna have a little fun. I'm gonna pick a bone with Joe Garcia here on Locked On Spurs. And we are back. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen today. Second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, wherever you get podcasts. So, Joe, I got a bone to pick with you. Let's rewind the clock back to when the Spurs played the Thunder a few games ago. And Joe got bold on social media, asking me and several other fans if the streak ends tonight, against the Thunder. Or no, I think Joe was calling it like it ends today. It's over.
I said I had a good feeling that
You had a good feeling, that it'll be over. So Mr. Joe Garcia here lets me know his thoughts, and I fire back saying, hey, give it time, which led Joe Garcia to try to drag me. Oh, you're not, look at Jeff. He's doing this. He's doing that. He's not a believer.
I said your faith.
Yeah. You're my faith. Yeah, that he has no faith in this team. But I was actually right because the Spurs blew a 20-point lead. And Joe, he never made it public that, hey, Jeff, I'm sorry. I should not have done that. Joe, you need to think before you speak, Joe.
No, I'm just like Jimenez. I don't give a, what I say. It happens, So it's not like I'm scared or I'm ducking, I'm dodging, but I got to call you out too. Cause in that same, after the game too, I said, hey, Jeff, if the Spurs wind up beating any of these next couple of teams by at least 5 points or more, will you be so bold as to answer the call and watch The Last Jedi in celebration that the losing streak ends and the team actually beat somebody by 5 points or more? And I just heard crickets.
Listen, I hate this trilogy. I hate it. 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 I can't stand it. I don't even acknowledge it. I don't acknowledge your tweet, not because it's anything personal towards you, Joe Garcia. It's my feelings towards the recent trilogy that I hate. Those don't exist.
But it's like saying, the fun part though, Jeff. If you had to wind up making good on the bet, this is the funny thing though, because you would watch the intro, of course, the letters, the scrolling coming in, talking about the premise of the actual film, and then 1 or 2 minutes in, you would do a Peter Griffin and be like, I'm done. And that would be the funny part of the whole thing. You wouldn't even watch the whole movie. You'd watch a minute or two of it. And
not even a second of that trash. Not even a second. Not even the intro words coming out across space and those yellow letters. Nothing. Not even the
drunk. See Luke drinking the blue milk.
There's so many things about that. What was it? The Last Jedi. That just ruined it for me. Just totally ruined it for me. Kind of like this Spurs season, it's getting close to the point where I'm going to be like Peter Griffin saying, done, because where are they going to go? Seriously, if they extend out for another 12, 13, 14 game losing streak, you got to call it a day already. But Joe, also, by the way, isn't it funny? We're already down to this now. We're resorting to having to fill up spots in this show with Last Jedi talk and you calling me out because that's how bad the season's been.
No, it's just shows you the sign of the times. I mean, you got to do something to, keep yourself optimistic and have fun with everybody on Twitter and just poke fun at your friends. I mean, what else are you going to do other than just say the team is losing again? They're down by 10, or they had a great first half, Jeff, and then they come in the third quarter and another team just goes on a run and the Spurs just can't buy a bucket and it's all over. Usually, though, by the end of the first quarter, it's going to be over. The Spurs, when they fall behind after the first quarter, they have a very poor record, as we've seen right now, going on an 11-game losing streak. If they can't at least be up on a team by at least 1 point after that first quarter, it spells doom for the team.
I want an apology, Joe. I want an apology. Because you didn't believe in me when I said, hey, give it time. This team's going to lose.
Well, I'll be honest with you. You're not right all the time. I'm going to be honest with you. We can go back and look at some previous episodes, and we've both been wrong. You're like, oh, the Spurs are going to win. They're going to beat this team. No problem. And then they just get
But in this instance, I got it right, Joe. Give me this one.
No. You probably had that little 8 ball, and you were shaking it at your desk, covering the game. And you said, will the Spurs win or lose? And it says, they will lose.
Yeah.
Oh, no. It's like, will the Spurs win? Yes or no? And it said yes. And you're like, the magic 8 ball has spoken.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hopefully the Spurs don't have to resort to a magic 8-ball tonight and get a W. They can just go out there and just take care of business and end this losing streak. But hey, we're done.
Would that not be a bad idea if Coach Pop just had like lineups inside the magic 8-ball, and given the way the season's going, he just shakes it up and that's who's starting for the night? I mean, hey.
I mean, might as well. I mean, what do you got to lose? The season's almost close to being unsalvageable. Yeah. Hey, we're done talking. We want to hear from you. What do you think about tonight's game, Spurs Rockets? The Spurs have what it takes to get a W. And when do you think the losing streak will end? Is it tonight or is it a future game? Let us know. You can let Joe know on Twitter at 2 Shots Podcast. You can let me know on Twitter at Jeff G Spurs Zone. Joe, tell us what's going on at 2 Shots.
Well, at 2 Shots, we're going to be recording some new episodes here that are going to have some special guests on. And hopefully we can go ahead and make our schedules work where we can go ahead and get Jimenez and on the show along with our good friend Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. So we can just have fun with the episode. We're not going to be going and picking on him or doing any of that stuff and dragging him, but we're going to have fun with that. So make sure you look out for that episode probably within the next week or so.
There you go. Another reason to check out Joe Garcia on Twitter at 2 Shots Podcast. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. Again, free and available wherever you get podcasts. Once again, also check out Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, wherever you get podcasts. Just like 2 Shots, just like this show, Locked On Spurs, YouTube, Odyssey app, wherever you get podcasts. But unlike Joe's show, you can also find Locked On Spurs on the Ken's 5+ app. So for Joe Garcia, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.